Their academics, let me tell you, from a second world country, were far beyond what we have here in Canada.
At secondstreet.org, we've been polling Canadians across the country and asking them what their thoughts are on the public education system. Thank you for joining us, Chelsea. So at secondstreet.org, we polled Canadians this year and asked them what they thought about the public education system. So what do you think the response, just take a guess between, do you think people thought that the public system was going in the right direction or the wrong direction?
I'm thinking from my experience, it's not going in the right direction. And I think a lot of people could probably relate with that, but that's just my thoughts.
So you're not alone, you're actually in the majority. So yes, the majority of people responded that they think public education is going in the wrong direction. And the top 3 concerns were lack of discipline and accountability, the school's priorities they didn't think were in line with what they wanted them to be, and sex ed and gender content. Those were the top 3 concerns. So you're a parent, and what's interesting about you is you had your child in public school, and now he's in private school. So obviously, you know, it was bad enough that you decided to opt out of the public system. So my question to you is, do you share any of those top 3 concerns? And are there other concerns that you have based on what you saw when your child was in public school?
Absolutely. It's not even just like a transition from public to private either. We have a very big story that I think kind of plays a part in all of the outcome of how it actually happened. So yes, absolutely. All 3 of those concerns are something that we struggle with in our household, and we needed to make sure that we took the steps to advocate for our child and move to a positive environment. So,
yeah. So let's unpack that. So, what were things that you like? How was your experience with the public system, and what were the specific things that you saw that started to raise red flags for you?
We had the best experience at the public school system from JK to grade 1, those 3 years. Mind you, there was like COVID in between, but the transition was awesome. The teachers in the early childhood, I have heard from all of my friends that that's been a really positive environment. We're from a very small town, so that small school setting was something that we loved, and I did not foresee what would come of the school. But it did turn into something a little bit more struggling and negative. I think that with our one and only child, we have one child, he's 10 now, and we pulled him out this year and put him into the public school system we pulled him out of the public and put him into the private school system. That was the best thing that we could have ever done for our child. One of our main struggles that we dealt with was the discipline. We had a lot of bullying situations that were happening, and nothing was getting done. So I strongly feel that there's going to be bullying anywhere you go, whether it's physical or just happening through words, but it's something that needs to still get dealt with, and it's how it gets dealt with. And I think we have seen in the public system that it's not getting dealt with. So that was a big red flag for us that things were not going to change. There was a lot of physical things that happened with my specific child, and it didn't just happen this year, it happened years ago, and it was the same child that it was happening now. So we were like, okay, no, we need to set a positive environment for
So
our
it was
child.
The same bully for years. And you guys brought it to the attention of the school, I imagine,
Absolutely.
And nothing was done for years?
Nothing. There was
that is
strangling.
Wild.
There was like physical things that happened when my child was in grade 3. There was a grade 7 that picked him up and threw him on the yard. And then this year he just got punched right in the face, and they said that they would talk to the child.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that any act of violence it would just be an automatic suspension. And if
Yeah.
if it's chronic, like an expulsion.
Yes. There is no,
yeah.
I feel like with physical violence, there is no 3 chances. I think there's like
just ongoing.
one, you're out.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
And then after 3, you're like gone.
Expelled. So let's talk about the other 2 concerns and any other concerns you may have.
Okay. So the academic was a huge thing for us. My husband said he remembers coming from a small town public school, going to high school in grade 9, and being so far behind. And he was like, it was awful. I wasn't messing around, but I was never up to the same level as the kids that were in the public schools in the city. And so he was always worried for our child that he was going to be behind. And sure enough, the academics are very far behind. I don't even know they're just not focusing on the same things. We moved away last year. We moved to a place called Mauritius. It's like the middle of the Indian Ocean. We ended up going and getting Maddox enrolled into a local private school there. So there was 3 other Canadians there, but they were French speaking. So it is a French speaking country. And he went there knowing a couple people, and their academics, let me tell you, from a second world country, were far beyond what we have here in Canada. Academics is number 1 on their list. The parents are prioritizing their children's academics over their own because everybody wants to have the ability to get off the island when they are 18 years old. And there's so many people on that island that have never even flown off. So this generation of Mauritians, or people on the island, a lot of expats too, they prioritize school and academics. So my child was learning things that we were learning in grade 6, and he was in grade 4 last year, and he's in grade 5 this year. He actually went up a year because it's the Cambridge learning is what they do there. So he was actually in grade 5. And the things that they were learning were so far beyond here.
So what grade was he when he was on the island with you guys?
He was essentially in grade 5 because of the ages, how they do it. They call it year 5, but it was grade 4 for Canadian.
So he was in grade 4, learning what they would have learned here in grade 6.
If not more.
Wow.
The maths were so far beyond what we learn here. My husband and I had to get onto YouTube and remind ourselves how to do the things. And so Matt and I, we were very impressed. We were really excited about the things that Maddox was going to learn. It was hard because there was the language barrier, so there were a lot of struggles for him, but they took the time to walk alongside of Maddox to just make sure that it was all sinking in. So that being said, Matt and I were like, when we decided to come back, we were worried with the academics. We were worried he would go back, either be bored or just get very complacent and be okay with not challenging himself. So that was a scary thing of thinking, okay, my kid is 10 years old and he is going to struggle when it comes to going to university or college because he is not soaking it in and not being taught.
I have a friend that is a high school math teacher. He says that the curriculum has gotten more watered down.
Yeah.
So I don't know how these kids are going to survive university level academics, and especially things like math, unless they're preparing themselves by getting private tutoring.
Right.
Or, you're going to a private school that is more rigorous. But certainly back then, the public system didn't prepare me. And it's concerning to hear that it's only gotten more watered down.
Well, I think what everybody is doing, whether it's the teachers, the students, everybody is trying to simplify everything. So with math, they're like, well, what's an easier equation? What can we do to simplify this? And if you're not on that same track of simplifying it, you're wrong. You're actually like Maddox, even in Mauritius, he came home with a long division equation that he had to do, and he had not simplified it. He did it in his head. He is a very good math whiz. He can like work things out in a very weird way. We actually were like, are you on the spectrum? Like it was this very intelligent way. He is not, but he has a creative mind of thinking with maths. So he brought it back to school and they were like, well, that answer is right. However, how you got to it was not how we're teaching you. But in the Mauritius system, they were like, teach us.
Oh,
so Maddox,
wow.
how did you learn how to get there? And we want to learn how you got there. And we're not going to tell you you're wrong. We're going to say, oh, okay, so you looked at this in a different way. But that is not the case how it is done in Ontario. If Maddox brought in an equation and it was done wrong, he will lose 3/4 of his mark on how he got to that conclusion, but he will get a 1 check mark on if it's right, but then there'll be 3 X's of how it came to, because it was not the way it was supposed to be done. So I think
odd, yeah.
it's being simplified, and I think all of our ways of coming up to the conclusion of math or maybe science, I don't know, Maddox is just getting into science, but it's all being simplified, and that's the academic problem in the public school system. And we're still learning in the private school system, but he comes home and my heart is like so softened because he's like, I love school. It is safe. My teacher, I love my teacher.
This is now in the private school.
In the private school. And I'm like, Maddox, or my husband Matt and I have said, we are mind blown. We never ever thought that Maddox would love school. We thought he would tolerate it. We were excited that this was going to be new. But
does he come home and tell you guys what he actually learned instead of saying nothing?
And our teacher gives us an email every week, and she says, "Hey Chelsea." So it's personalized.
Yeah.
And she says, this is what we did. This is what you can ask. This is what we're going to do next week. Seeing my child gray and surviving and just like making school work to now seeing him thriving and excited. If everybody could afford private school, amazing. I would be like, do it. But then our private schools might be filled with too much. But he has 16 kids in his class.
Yeah, so there's actually another option which only Albertans have. So Alberta is the only province in the country that has something called charter schools.
Yeah.
So whereas here in Ontario, we can either send our kid to public school with all the frightening things happening there, or you can pay for private school. You've sacrificed to be able to do that, or you can take a pay cut and homeschool. But Albertans have a fourth option, which is charter schools. Charter schools are publicly funded, privately run schools. Okay. So there's no tuition.
Right.
You can send your kid there just like any public school, and the difference is that instead of the government running it, it's privately run. So it's been described as like, the public school boards are like, the government run public school boards are like these giant freighters, and for them to like turn and shift, it takes years.
Right.
And they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And versus a charter school is like a little speedboat because it's privately run. It can turn and it's more, it's got more autonomy.
Okay.
So they teach the curriculum, but we actually went out to Alberta and we spoke with the founders of 2 different charter schools. One is called Calgary Classical Academy, and they focus on the liberal arts. They still teach the sciences and the math, but the big focus is on liberal arts.
Yeah.
And the other is called STEM Innovation Academy, and their big emphasis is on STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. And it was night and day what we heard from them. So their discipline policies are so much more rigorous. They don't have issues with bullying. The founder from CCA actually told us that they don't have issues with violence and bullying because they sweat the small stuff.
Right.
That's their policy.
Okay, I love that.
So things like swearing are heavily penalized. A teacher hears you swearing once, your parents are notified. If it happens again, you get suspended.
And so how do you get into this school though? Like,
So in Alberta, Albertan parents can access it just like any public school. So if they live within the geographical area, they can access it. And you're not paying tuition. So there are students from all socioeconomic backgrounds, and they all excel.
Okay.
And they don't have bullying. And actually, they did a survey of the students, and they said the students, the main thing that they liked about their school is, and this is a direct quote, they said, there is no hate here. There's no bullying. So they don't have issues like that because they take discipline seriously.
Yeah.
And the administration has the backs of the teacher to be able to enforce those things. So like one other example is they have a no smartphone policy.
okay.
So any distractions, it's so
like,
sensible.
Of course, of course.
it's-
Like, why are kids making TikToks?
Yes,
At
right.
recess.
Yeah.
Like,
It's very sensible.
Yeah.
And teachers actually feel empowered to, you know, if they catch the student, so the first time, if they catch you with the phone, it gets confiscated for a week.
okay.
On a second offense, it's I think a month or 2 weeks.
So they have parents, like the parents have their backs to that.
Yes.
Because you don't have a complaining Karen coming in going, you have my child's
Yes,
phone.
so the parents know when they sign up to go to these charters
Right.
what their policies are.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the parents specifically want those policies, and that's why they're enrolling their kid in the
Okay.
school. And actually both of those charter schools have massive waiting lists.
Okay.
So there's people
I was wondering,
wanting, they're
yeah.
at capacity.
Right.
There's people wanting to get in. So it's very successful.
Right.
It's a great option for parents. If charter schools were in Ontario, is that something that you would consider?
Absolutely. Is there uniforms there?
Yes.
Because I also feel like
Yes.
that's something that there's so many aspects to this uniform that there's
Yeah.
nobody bullying, nobody picking on somebody because they
Yeah.
don't have the coolest thing, or that helps the parents in the morning getting ready. But it also gives the kids a sense of pride.
Yeah.
One of the other things you were talking about, it's such a scary area to even talk about. And I feel like maybe this is where the teachers also are very scared to talk about is the sexual lessons that are being taught. I don't even know how to like say it in the most politically correct way. The different bathrooms that are allowed at the school. I think, again, this is now turned into something that it's a joke and people are becoming more relaxed again.
Well, we saw that with the teacher in Hamilton, Burlington or Hamilton.
I don't even know.
It was a big news story where
Okay.
there was a shop teacher wearing massive
Oh, yes.
prosthetic breasts.
Yeah.
I think this was like global. It made
Yes.
international headlines. And the students were grossed out
Yeah.
because this teacher had, you know, these big fake breasts with
Yeah.
nipples protruding.
Yeah.
And they took videos of it, making fun of it. Like it was a joke to them and it was gross.
Yeah.
And the school board came out and said, no, it is this teacher's human right to wear these massive, potentially dangerous prosthetic
Prosthetics.
breasts
Yeah.
in front of his students. And it's a fetish costume.
Yeah.
So basically the school board decided that this teacher has a human right to wear a fetish costume while teaching our kids.
Well, are they allowed to dress up like a clown? No,
Yeah.
because that would be a distraction. Are they allowed to dress up like an animal because it's Halloween? No, like so why these things are allowed, but it's because it's such a sensitive topic
Yeah.
in the world altogether. But in private school, it's just not. It's not existent here. We don't. We have a girls' bathroom and we have a boys' bathroom and we have a family bathroom, like, or a handicap bathroom. My child said that somebody at the public school was a girl going into the boys' bathroom and he was really uncomfortable. So he would go
course,
into a
yeah.
stall, and I was like, 100%. He'd be uncomfortable if anybody was looking at him, let alone
Yeah.
somebody that doesn't have those parts. And
Yeah.
they're now, so it's just the public school we are living in a gray.
Were there boys using the girls' bathrooms as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was also the bathroom that you could go into that was whatever you want to be that day. And I was like, well, my child isn't He doesn't. He's a boy, so this could get very political. So I don't need to get. I don't want to state my political views here, but it's just the private school has that very safe place.
Yes,
it's just, and I think it's whether it's Christian or not. The private school doesn't have gray areas. It's like you show up in your uniform and you do your job, and you're cared for. The discipline, the teachers, I feel they all give their way, I guess, of disciplining is through caring, and it's through loving. Like if they're gonna maybe say, so my child is a chatterbox, so Maddox, please can you stop chatting? But it's done out of love. It's not done out of, and this is why I need you to stop chatting, because you're distracting the other kids from learning. It's not just don't do this, don't do that. So everything is just done out of love. And there's going to be the teacher at the private school that might not fulfill all of our needs and our wants, but it's not 90%. It's their standards are different, and they get paid less than, which is insane.
Oh wow!
The school that we are at,
do they seem happier?
They do. Yes, one of my great friends. We left the same time. She was at the same school as Maddox was. She pulled her kids out, and she's now teaching at the private school. Week 1, she said, I might need to revisit going back to the public school next year because we are getting paid less, but we'll see. And now she is like, I will never go back and teach in the public school. She said, I will take less and we will figure out how to manage on this, because this is a lifestyle change for her, because she notices a difference in the students, notices a difference in the environment, and she loves her job. And she didn't last year. She would be like, oh, I don't know how I'm doing this. So it's just, I guess it all comes down to financial ability, if they can handle it.
Yeah, and it shouldn't have to. Like it really, it's a shame that in Ontario we don't have that option of charter schools. Yeah. And we can vote with our feet if the public school system is not living up to the task of,
how do we get these charter schools in Ontario? Your daughters too.
That's a very good question. I think, so personally, like Second Street.org, we don't lobby government, but certainly you as a private citizen could write to your provincial representative and say, hey, do you know that parents have this option in Alberta? Yeah. And I'm a parent. I have concerns. This is something I would like to see here in Ontario, because public education is very important. Yeah. Like you made it work, but you have the story of your friend who is just stuck and frustrated, and it shouldn't be that way. Our taxes are paying for public education, and so we should have that delivered to us. Absolutely. And if the government run board is failing parents, then let's see a private board. And it's our tax dollars. We should be able to choose. Well, I like how this school is run, so I'm going to put my kids here. Right. And actually, what they found in Alberta is, anytime a charter school is introduced in an area, it actually brings up the level of the public board. Okay. Because now they have competition. Yeah. Because now parents have choice. And they hear it. They hear the buzz of what they're doing. So it actually helps elevate the standards across the board, which is very interesting. Awesome. So you're in your experience, would you say that your kid is thriving more academics? And my kid hated reading. He was not a great reader, not a strong reader, and every night now he is like, okay, Mom, let's go lie down from 8 till 8:30. We read. He's reading chapter books. Matt and I just are floored at what our kid can actually do from what he could last year. Maybe with Mauritius in between too, he wanted to up his game as well, because he felt he was behind when we got into the school there. They said, your child can't write. And I said, well, yeah, he can write. What do you mean? And handwriting. So that is not at all in any curriculum in public school systems. Yes. Yeah.
And no, you don't need to handwrite. You can print for the rest of your life, absolutely. But like, where have our standards gone? So yes, everything we're seeing, everything in Maddox has elevated. Life
Since he left the public
has
system.
gotten better. He is safe. He tells all of his friends how great it is. And we need to make sure that, like my husband and I, that we're not bragging that we're there, because I don't want it to be like, oh, it's the fancy public or private school people. Because growing up, if I thought of a private school, I'd think they were just rich. We're not rich.
Yeah, I think it's gotten to the point now where the public system is so bad that regular folks like
figuring
you
it out.
are sacrificing and figuring and doing what they have to do and taking the hit financially to secure their child's future.
It is the best thing we've ever done for our family. And we have one kid though. So I look at my friend and I'm like, okay, so you have 2 of your own kids and a stepson. So how do you pick?
That's right.
And
that's why we need more options.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I would love the charter school option. I actually, while you were talking about it, I'm thinking I have 2 nieces that live there, and I was thinking, oh, I need to get in touch with my cousin and let her know all about it. But they're in Edmonton. You said this is Calgary?
They have STEM Innovation Academy has another location in Edmonton. And I think the one that focuses on liberal arts might also have an Edmonton campus. So they're there. If they should get on a wait. If they're not in it, they should join the wait list ASAP. Definitely reach out to them and tell them. I was blown away when I saw the footage of it. It was like, wow, I'm so jealous.
Alberta is a different world. They are making things happen. They're in a better place, I think, politically, and they are making things happen. But it's too cold and yucky there. It's cold here, but I don't want to live there.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, for joining us and sharing your experience.
Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of the big picture. I hope the charter schools come.
Me too.